for finance teams, precision is so important and not making errors that AI can never be a black box. You actually want to see how the AI is acting. You want to be able to trace the steps. Of course, models getting better push the limit quite a bit, but a lot of the challenge is much more around building the right user experiences, being the right way of validating results and like testing than it is about the underarching models getting better.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of AI Without Borders. I'm thrilled to have Albert, co-founder of Aleph AI. Aleph is an AI FP&A platform, source of truth for financial data. They have raised over $46 million from funds like Khosla, Bain Capital Ventures, and are trusted by companies like Eight Sleep and Zapier. But most importantly for this podcast, Albert is originally from Argentina. Albert, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So, starting from the beginning, for those who aren't familiar with Aleph, what is Aleph and what do you offer?
Yeah, so we're an FP&A platform, which means that we work with finance teams broadly, and in many cases with the financial planning and analysis team specifically in everything FP&A, which is like reporting, budgeting, forecasting. So we're like a full platform. And we started in 2020, so AI was very, very different back then than it is today. So a lot of the early iterations of the product were more like workflow based. But over the last few years, it truly became like an AI native platform, and AI is much more at the center of what we do and how we help finance teams.
As you mentioned, you started in August 2020 before ChatGPT. And one of the things that we were speaking is that Aleph had already built the plumbing, integrations, data pipelines that then allow it to embed AI successfully and now become an AI-first company. Can you share what that plumbing work that you did before was and why was it so important to lay out the correct foundations for what the company is today?
Yeah, I always say that all of these progress that happened with AI caught us at probably like just the right moment where we were, on one hand, we were early enough as a company that we were willing and we actually bet everything on AI, and that like, hey, this is going to change the way the finance teams work. And it's like, AI or bust. And on the other hand, we were late stage enough that we had that like plumbing and infrastructure. And the way I think about that, and even as I talk to engineers, maybe that are thinking about joining the team, is when you want to build AI-powered experiences, you can go very, very fast. But there are things that you need that are not very fast. And things like that are a very solid, robust, reliable integration with NetSuite. That's something that you need to, you can build quickly, but you make more robust and you iterate over hundreds of customers that use it and let you find edge cases and make it better. So I think we're in a situation when we started working more on AI where all of that was behind us and was working very well. So we could like ship very, very quickly at the level that it mattered. That is kind of like the agent layer and working with AI.
And were there also some things that with AI you had to drop, meaning you maybe did like a lot of investments and built some things before AI that wasn't the most optimal going forward?
Yeah, I think for sure. And that happens in software with, even without AI, and AI makes it, maybe even more prevalent of you're constantly cleaning up old code, like cleaning up tech debt and like rewriting things in a better way. So I think that like, I don't think that AI for us has like done that to a greater extent. And I think one of the reasons why is that for finance teams, like precision is so important and accuracy and not making errors that AI can never be a black box. And it's like, hey, you used to do this without AI and like used to do a lot of clicks. And then now AI just does it for you and you don't see the clicks. You actually want to see how the AI is acting. You want to be able to trace the steps. So the no code experience is as important in this like, AI world as it was before AI came into the picture.
And as you were saying, trust is everything in this space. And from the CFOs and finance team that I speak with, maybe from the list of professions are the ones that are more skeptic or careful with AI given how important accuracy is. Can you share some examples of either product features or things you do during the sales process or post sales that have enabled you to build trust with this historically risk-averse buyer?
Yeah, I think there's many things. In the end, you gain trust through repetition, right? Like if we make an agreement, you hold your word, I will trust you more next time. If we make an agreement and like, you don't hold your word, then like I'm gonna be a little bit more less trustful next time around. So I think like trust is built through mainly being correct over and over over a long period of time. And the more it's correct, the more people trust it. So then it's about really, one, how can you make the AI be correct? And then two, how can people verify that the AI is correct? So the first one is like how to make the AI correct. I think in finance, LLMs have traditionally not been great with numbers and data. And that is why there's other domains. I think like code to a certain extent is that where you slap an LLM onto a product and things just work and it's magical. And like as developers, you need to care about experience, but like things work out of the box. Finance, very far from that. And it's hard. And I think a lot of the features that we have managed to make work very, very well is combining LLMs with more traditional, like, machine learning techniques and other ways of doing data, where you end up having like a multi-step process where like some steps are LLM driven, but maybe you just have like, the LLM do like the process to traditional math or machine learning. So I think like that's how you get some of that validation and that like accuracy. And then how can you make people validate that? It's about showing its steps, showing its work. It's the same way that if a financial analyst comes to you and is like, hey, this is a taste values version of like a table and like you're going to trace, you're going to get very nervous and you're not going to present that to the management team without actually understanding what's going on. I think the same goes for AI. And I think like the mental model is treating AI as a financial intern or an analyst where you want to be able to trace its work. When the AI gives an output, one of the things that we do a lot is variance analysis. So I'm using AI to understand why we're spending more on this particular line item, let's say software. And the AI gives you the answer and it's, hey, we're spending X $1,000 more in Aleph because it's an awesome tool. But then it also attaches what's the backup and what are the things that it looked at in order to arrive at that answer. And all of that backup and all of that tracing is just like one click away. So those are the things that we do and we embed into the product to generate that trust.
And related to that math point that you mentioned, this year there have been a lot of news around different providers now beating different math competitions from the user-facing application side. Have you seen that impact in any use cases that are now possible, or is this more one of those things that yet, unlike this test environments, it worked great, but will still are not seeing that math LLM benefits in practical use cases?
We definitely see benefits. The only thing it's always a trade-off between the accuracy and the traceability and how much you're able to see its work. So the more powerful workflows for LLMs and where they can get better at math, what they're actually doing is they're just running Python under the hood and they're doing a lot of calculations there. So if you're okay with it being, as a finance person that you might not know, Python be a black box for you. So it's like, do you want maximum accuracy, but like it's a black box? Or would you rather it be a little bit less powerful and it like be something that you can audit and trace and you can like actually see, spreadsheet cells or things that you can follow? So I think that's the inherent trade-off that we have as, building products for finance teams. And like, those are all the decisions where for different applications, we might choose more of the power and the precision and like versus for some applications, we'll prioritize traceability. And those are the decisions that we make all the time. And it's like, yeah, that's the inherent trade-off in some way.
I feel like a lot of decisions in startups end up being trade-offs. And as you think about the sales process, when you go on sale to CFO teams, do you put AI at the forefront? We are an AI-powered solution, or is it more like a thing that you do on the back, but not really put it at the front? I'm connecting this to the concept around trust. Like, how are they feeling in this moment in time with
I think it's a very good question, first of all, because it is tough. I think like in 5 years from now, no one is going to question, like, why would you ever buy software that is not AI first? And I think like we're living this transition world where AI is not like as powerful, as precise, as omnipresent. So we have a mix of everything. So I think like it's really it's about having empathy with the customer and understanding where they're coming from. And I think we lean, we don't hide the fact that we believe the future is AI. And I think we say that, but like how much we lean into customers want an AI tool, and like that's where we should spend 80% of the time versus, customers aren't even allowed to use AI in their company, and they just want like a good old traditional workflow that saves them time and money. And I think we lean on those more or less based on the customer and based on what they're telling us.
And from what you've seen in the market, and again, leveraging the 5 years that you've been already, are you seeing in general AI being a catalyst of sales? Meaning in other spaces like legal is one that historically, like they weren't great buyers or looking to buy software. With AI, kind of open a new opportunity where there are new budgets coming for this. Are you seeing similar things in finance?
We're starting to see it more in the last, I would say, 6 to 9 months. I think there's clearly been an uptick in people coming for AI. I think what's interesting is that in the end, it's the AI might be the thing that like gets them interested, gets them to talk to us in the first place. But once they start to see the product, they're like, oh yeah, the AI is very cool, and I cannot wait to implement all of these. But there's a lot of value in the non-AI as well. So I think that it's been a great catalyst to just open conversations and have people be more open to change. And I think it comes down to, you know, finance teams understanding that AI is going to change the way that things work. And even if only part of the promise is realized today, you want to be on a journey and you want to develop a partnership with the people that are going to be able to take you to that future and to that world where AI is doing like 90% of the busy work. And they know that that's not going to be the incumbents that have been around for like 20 years and cannot even like, make an integration in the time that they should.
And are there any one or two top of mind use cases that you have tried and failed? Meaning like LLMs are not ready yet, but maybe in 1 or 2 years as foundational models progress, you think will be possible as it relates to finance?
Um, I think like most of it has been, it's actually about the user experience than it is about like the actual, power of the LLMs, right? And like in the limit, you could solve some of the finance problems with like vibe coding yourself and an entire app. But like that's not auditable. That's not like something that you can like verify. That's not something that you can determine accuracy. So today, of course, models getting better push the limit quite a bit, but a lot of the challenge is much more around like building the right user experiences, being the right way of like validating results and like testing than it is about the underarching models getting better. Maybe the example, maybe the only exception to that is LLMs are not great as tabular data. So when we get into more like the sheets handling and like working with actual like spreadsheet data, I do think that's something that we talk a lot with the team at OpenAI. We have some relationship with Nima and Anthropic too, and we know that that's something that they're working on. So maybe that's the only segment where there are unlocks to be had.
That's a good one. And many people might not know, but you're technical and you actually coded the first version of Aleph. In our previous call, you mentioned that you now use the different AI coding tools and that sometimes you yourself solve directly your customer problems directly, which I found it fascinating. Can you share more of that?
Of all, I wish of these vibe coding platforms have been available when I wrote the first version of Aleph, because I think like it would have saved me a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. It seems very archaic now that I actually, wrote the code by hand. But yeah, I think it's been an interesting journey where I coded a lot that first version and in the first probably like 6 months of Aleph until we had a bigger engineering team. I was actually coding. Then for probably like 2-3 years, I stopped and it was, too hard and like it wasn't worth it. And I think in the last 6 to 9 months, I actually started to code much more again. And I find it a great way to even like being closer to the work the engineers do, having more empathy for them, being able to communicate with like our product design team and being all at the same page. And yeah, like there was a fun example from a couple of weeks ago where we have one of our customers, his name is Axel, VP of finance at a company called Airbyte. And for a finance person, he's like quite technical. He will write his own Python scripts. So he shared with me that he had a feature request that was very small. He wanted the dashboard name to show up in the dashboard URL. You know how when you're in a Google Sheet, like the name of in your Chrome window, it takes the name of the Google Sheet. So he sent me a message saying, "Hey, I wish this was a feature. I bet that I could even code it myself. This needs to be very easy." And I am like, okay, let's try it. So write to me an instruction and all that I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste that into Cursor and I'm going to have an agent do it. And then I'm going to try and see if we can like finish that feature without any human intervention. And said and done, he wrote a message. I copy pasted it. Cursor did it one shot. Of course, an engineer reviewed it, and I think there's a lot of testing and policies that go into place for that not to break things. But yeah, the morning after that feature was in production, and it was directly from customer feedback to production without even me coding. And I think that example, like that's the general example, right? Of the more that we can go fast and the more that we can act on customer feedback. I think that's something that customers really appreciate. And if one of the ways to make that faster is like me being involved and also helping me generate empathy for experience that our team has, even better.
I imagine the surprise when the engineer saw your name on the pull request. And apart from your personal use case, how has AI changed the way that you operate internally, both on tools that you use or processes that you now leverage AI, both from a org standpoint or specific ways that you find different employees at your org are finding ways to use AI and accelerate the way that you operate?
Yeah, we do a lot of vibe coding small apps for different purposes. Even just half an hour before this, I was talking to like one of our sales engineers. His name is Ridbig, and he's helping a company transition from like a legacy software. And there were the way that they had set up the income statement, they wanted to extract that definition to put it in Aleph. And we like vibe coded an app that would, because there's no way to export that definition from this like old legacy software. So we vibe coded a small app to do that for us. And something that would have been 45 minutes of data entry, it was 2 minutes of vibe coding that and helping it transition. So we have a lot of those small, ephemeral, in some way, apps for specific things that otherwise would have taken a lot more time. But we also have a lot of processes that are actually much different because of AI, especially on our go-to-market team. We have like a go-to-market engineer that his sole focus is to automate that. We put all of our transcripts from sales calls into a database, and we have things like deals moving from stage to stage automatically. Every person in the go-to-market team gets a briefing every morning with all of the meetings that they're going to have and all of the context from prior meetings. Next steps get generated and logged automatically based on the transcripts. We have our own Slack bot that is actually part of the product where you can ask a question about the deal. So if I'm like, hey, when was my last conversation with Daniel? What's left to close that deal? And when do I have the next step? You will get like a very, detailed answer to that. So it's really changed a lot the way that we operate. And I think it's even shaping the org where we think that we can have fewer middle managers And like we were going to be able to even scale in a very, very different way because of the use of AI.
And have the characteristics that you look for when you're hiring change as a result of AI? And asking, as I've been reading, there's a trend on hiring more generalists than before. But yeah, curious if there are some skills that you now prioritize more than you did when you started the company.
Yeah, I think we definitely look for, AI savviness as a skill. And I think like in all levels, people are expected to, work with it. It's part of our performance reviews. We have a line item for how well you use AI tools. And because I think that our, go-to-market engineer is great. His name is Chago. He's awesome. He would build the best things. But in the end, it's going to be the people that are, interacting with the bots, reading the transcripts, the ones that will need to have the savviness to give the right feedback and to ask for the next feature and make things better. So not everyone needs to be a developer, right? Not everyone needs to code their own auths and I think, but understanding how to use AI effectively, understanding how to give feedback, understanding how to push the boundary of it can be done. I think that's a base expectation.
And one of the other stories that I like that we spoke briefly about was a last minute hackathon that your team participated. If one, you can share that story, and two, how do you think that story reflect the culture that you have and you're looking to build at Aleph?
Yeah, I think, when we were five people back like 4 or 5 years ago, we always had, you know, probably once a week it happened that we were doing like a last minute sprint because we had a lot of I was on a sales call, a customer asked for a feature and I was, yeah, of course we have it. And then of course we didn't have it, right? So like, but I trusted that the team would be able to build it in time for the next meeting. And I think like that's not sustainable, right? Like that's not something that you want to do like every week for the direction of the company, but it like really helped us push a lot in the early days. And we still have some of that today. But I think it reflects that spirit of kind of like challenging what a traditional timelines looks like. And we do it with like our own development. We do it when we think about integrations with our platforms. We ask ourselves like, is there any valid reason that we can point at that we shouldn't be able to do this in one day as opposed to 1 week? And then sometimes we find reasons and like, that makes sense. But I think like the mindset of always challenging it is a core part of the culture. So yeah, when the story that you were referring to is when OpenAI launched GPT-5. It was on a Thursday, I think Thursday at noon Pacific. They invited us because we have been chatting with them about that to a hackathon, and the hackathon was happening Saturday morning at 9 a.m. in San Francisco. Our team is distributed and people are all over the world, all over the Americas. So it would have been very easy to say like, too hard, let's do it next time. And I think that mindset of challenging and saying, why not? We ended up calling a few team members that we thought would be interested and it would be good to participate in the hackathon with. And we're like, hey, you're now in Argentina. It's like 4 p.m. Do you think you can be at the airport in 1 hour to fly to San Francisco in like 2.5 hours to participate in this hackathon? And the team jumped at it. And I think we had one person from Argentina, one from Uruguay, and one from Florida. They were all on a plane on like a 1 to 3 hour notice. They were in San Francisco the next day. They were in the hackathon by the start of it. They even, with that like very little sleep and a bit of jet lag, they made it to being one of the 6 finalists and placed, I think, like third in the hackathon. So very, very fun journey. And I think like a little bit of a nugget that represents some of the Aleph culture.
And you mentioned a super interesting point there around all the team is remote. There is actually not a office as I left. In this age and time, I find very hard to find a true contrarian opinion, but I do find being remote these days is one of those. Why did you took that decision of going remote only, and what have seen some of the advantages that you've seen as a result of that?
So I think in the end, the remote versus in person is really a trade-off between like ease of collaboration versus access to talent. And it is true that there are trade-offs, as with everything in life. I think for us, it's like the power of really reaching the best talent, no matter where they are. We think that like the absolute best people, and you have processes, and you like work in a way that you can compensate for that like lack of serendipity. It's very powerful. So I think like we value in-person collaboration. We do team offsites 3 times a year where we gather the whole company. As we scale, we're gonna start to do even individual team offsites. So like the engineering team, the go-to-market team. And we think that that's the way to make it work is yes, the flexibility, having the flexibility of hiring people no matter where they are, but creating those in-person experiences and in-person opportunities to collaborate. And even in the future, we're not close to the idea of having a few, I think like Linear, the issue tracking company, published a nice blog post about it a week or two ago of them having these co-working hubs. There is like some offices that people can go to hang out without the expectation to be there. And I think that's a model that resonates with the way that we feel about it, where it's not about not having in-person collaboration, but it's about prioritizing being able to hire the best people no matter where.
And one of the things that I sometimes speaks with founders is the challenge that the AI is bringing to focus. Meaning, with AI, the great thing is that you can do so many things, which is great. At the same time, one of the key factors of success in a startup is focusing on the right things. How are you finding that challenge as the CEO of the company, and how do you align between what to pursue and what to not, especially with AI, where possibilities become a bit more endless?
Yeah, I think like it's about the way that you prioritize and like your prioritization framework. For example, we do like, and I think there's ways to make that like there was you extract the positives without falling into the trap of lack of focus. So for us, we do have projects, and like those are where people spend 80% of the time from an engineering and like product perspective, and we try to protect those. What we're doing more and more with AI is, every time that there's a small, like could be bugs, but it could also be, hey, the wording of this would be a little bit better, or like these two things would be better aligned. 1 year ago, we would just backlog that and say we'll get there at some point. And now we have much more like a culture of no, let's actually fix those, because you can start a day, launch 10 agents doing some of these like 10 tasks in parallel, go work on the thing that is going to require focus and you to be, paying attention. And then, yeah, before you're stopping for lunch or before you're doing a coffee break, you check in your 10 agents and you see what they have been doing and you give them some feedback and you keep going. So I think that idea of there is a bit of working on many things in parallel, but there's a very clear separation of, what are the things that I'm vibe coding or like having agents do that are more like those like smaller tasks, and what are the things that you still need someone to think through it and be like AI assisted, and AI will help, but it does require more of that like focus.
Yeah, no, that's a good balance. And jumping to the last portion of the quickfire round, I do some quick questions, and you give me your reactions. Are you
So
longer or short the startups that are emerging, building the cursor for Excel or AI powered Excel?
it's always hard, and like you risk being a fool. For me, it's going to be much more function specific rather than someone building horizontally. And I
Do you think that CFO and finance teams will move out in a near medium future from Excel, or do you think they are tapped in Excel for a long term?
I'm 100% long spreadsheets, Excel, Google Sheets, right? Like it doesn't matter which of the two. But I think like spreadsheets are not a platform. They're like a no code programming language, right? So I think it goes beyond the platform itself. I feel like spreadsheets are like a language that people can use to build their own experiences. And I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
Are you long or short QuickBooks and NetSuite?
I'm short with an asterisk. I think though, Intuit, Oracle are not moving as fast as they should towards this promise of, an AI native ERP, real-time close, real-time view of their data cleaning and manipulation happening automatically. So I think they're currently losing the race, but they are they have a big customer base. So I think jury is still out on who will win that race.
Will finance teams be reduced, increased, or keep similar in a medium-term horizon given AI?
I think finance teams are going to be able to stop doing 90% of the manual busy work that they don't feel adds value. And where that means smaller finance teams, which I think is a possibility. I think we're going to have a billion-dollar company with a one-person finance team, or where that's still having the finance team, but like being what they should be, that is more of like strategic partners to the business, making them think through decisions. I think that's going to be different companies might take different routes, but finance teams will definitely not have to do the manual, busy, boring work.
And the last one, a bit more deep than any of the others. As you reflect on your journey on becoming a founder and what you're prioritizing now, what would you say are you optimizing for in life?
I think for me, it's like building cool things with great people. And I think it's I love what we're doing because I love interacting with, like, our team is great, but like that's maybe obvious. And, I personally interviewed every single one of them. And it's one of the things that I'm the most proud of in this whole company building. But not only that, I also love interacting with our customers. And I think like finance teams are pretty smart. They're pretty analytical. They have like they value being heard and like us trying to make their lives better. So I think I find joy in that, and just like, we're hanging out with like cool, smart people, trying to make them a little bit happier in their day-to-days. And that's nice and fulfilling.
No, and with that amazing note, Albert, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.